The Land of the Dead. Anticlea's Point of View. Carly, Block 3. One would think I would remember something as important as my death, but even that memory is beginning to fade. It felt like such a long time ago. I exited the living world slowly. I can remember that at least. It had been many years since my son, Odysseus, left. I was constantly worried, as any mother would be. He promised me he would not be gone long. After 10 years, I doubted he would ever return. I had become infected with an unnamed disease, as many others had. The physicians were of no help. Though I prayed to the gods, I soon became one of its many victims. It wasn't long before I arrived in Erebus. Being trapped among the other souls was more terrifying than I had imagined. I only had a slight comprehension of time. With every passing second, the world around me seemed to become colder and darker. There was no day or night, and sleep was impossible due to the constant cries of the mourning dead. My sanity was slowly draining away. It was clear which spirits had been in that void the longest. They spoke in moans and wails, or had forgotten how to speak altogether. Their flesh had begun to rot long ago, and their eyes were bloodshot. Stumbling as they walked, they were oblivious to the world around them. They stared off into the distance, trying to find some purpose for their existence. Many years after my transition from one world to the next, the other spirits began to groan and stir from their places in the caverns. The smell of blood hung heavily in the air. I, like the others, was drawn towards the source. Ram and ewe lay dead on the uneven ground. Their black blood trickled out of gashes in their sides. A living man towered over them. He and his men guarded the blood, pointing their weapons at any that dared to come near. Even in the dim light, the sharp edges of their swords shone like the sun. I made my way to the front of the crowd for a better view. The man spud suddenly, and I caught a glance of his profile. The moment I saw his face, I knew he was my son. Oh, the joy that filled me! I had decided with a heavy heart long ago that Odysseus was dead, trapped in some other part of this dark abyss. I called out to him, "Odysseus, my son, come forth, so that we may be together again." He looked towards me, slowly lowering his sword. I saw him mouth my name, Anticlea, in disbelief. The expression on his face quickly turned from shock to grief. Tears began to stream down his face, and he swiftly looked away. Hands trembling, sword shaking, he continued to protect the blood. I slowly stepped away from the crowd of moaning souls. Of course, I thought, I would only be tempting him, distracting him from his goal. I was proud of Odysseus, though. It was clear he was doing all he could to bring his men home. He was a true leader, just like his father, Laertes. My son's presence had lightened my spirits, but only for a moment. Once more, I walked back to the dungeons of the stark despair I called my temporary home. I sat down and prayed that Odysseus and his men would return safely to the surface world. After this encounter, I felt I was one step closer to Elysium Fields. But for how long would I have to wait before I escaped this pit of endless pain?